Orzekea is amazing. Orzekea is flat out, in my opinion, the best video we have had in terms of story, in terms of drive, in terms of excitement, in terms of everything that you could possibly say positive. I have not a single thing bad to say about Orzekea. From the PvE content to everything that's going to go inside it, through the storyline, through the implications, through the lore, all of it. Orzekea is simply, I see it as a twist in Black Desert's future for the good. And not just good, we are actually having lore move in ways we have never seen. Black Desert now factually has lore which you guys can follow. And it's not just lore that you guys can follow, lore that excites. And it has always excited me personally, but we have things to talk about, man. I've been growing insane over Orzekea and what it essentially brought up as a bombshell. And I just want to say to PA, good job. Good job. Don't stop. Seriously, don't stop. Keep on doing what you're doing because it excites players. And it's not just me. People that don't give a crap about lore are going into Orzekea and like being, whoa. From the cutscenes to the animations to all of the things that are happening inside of the presentation of it is by far the best you have ever done. So just keep on doing what you're doing, and I hope Demon Lance is twice as good because you have set an expectation, PA, and it's insane. But before we go into Orzekea, let's give a little bit of a summary for Atoraxxion and just a little bit of explanation because some people might not even know what Atoraxxion is. So yeah, let's just pretty much say. So Atoraxxion, the fortress, the bastion of humanity, the last place of respite which was supposed to be. Let's just talk about it briefly. I don't want to go into too much details, just to give you a good understanding of what Atoraxxion actually is. Atoraxxion was built by Sage Ruxmahadekya, the first Ruxmahadekya. It's very important for you to kind of put that through and understand that there are multiple sages into our world, and they kind of go into this infinity loop as explained by Pearl Abyss. So Atoraxxion was built as a prevention fortress measure, think of it like this, a way to combat the incoming darkness, the so-called Dark Invaders, which is the old name of what we know now as the Black Spirit. So Sage was chilling one day, just going through, studying the cosmos with a telescope, whatever he was doing, and he found out that a meteorite is heading towards our world, which was still unnamed before Adana was a thing, right? So our world basically nameless. Just looking into this, and he saw that world of ours is probably going to perish because of this meteorite and all of the black spirits that are inside it, because he was able to spot those as well. Remember, he's a man of science of unparamount magnitude. He is up ahead in modern standards in terms of science. If you think Marnie has some cool shit, Sage is just gonna go just wipe the floor with him. This type of guy the Sage is. So fact of the matter is, he sees this meteorite, Sage, and he's like, I need to do something. So he puts a mission in his head as a thought, and that is to find a way to combat this darkness. And he starts basically building Atoraxxion. But here is a very important thing. He cannot do this alone. So he looks throughout the entirety of the world, not necessarily with a purpose, but rather he looks into the world for people like-minded that are going to take every word he says as unconditional, and they're going to aid him in this so-called mission of his to construct a bastion, a stronghold, which is going to have inside different types of creations that are going to help combat the darkness. This is the purpose of Atoraxxion. So he recruits, of course, Vacha, Sika, Yolu, and Orz, and that happens throughout different times. Bear in mind, I think Yolu was first with Sika, then comes Vacha, and then comes Orz. And fact of the matter is, they're all kids, and they look very weird, which is something that we do not understand in the lore community. We don't know why exactly they're like this. We thought that they were shies. We always thought that they were shies. I personally never liked the idea of them being shies. Fact of the matter is that they're capable of growing up, and that they did. Now, they're orphans of war. This is what they're essentially described as. So all Vacha, Sika, Yolu, and Orz are orphans of war. Now let's explain the biomes. The biomes are basically all the places, all the small little dungeons that we go through. So we have Yolunakia, we have Valmakea, we have Sikrakia, and we have Orzekea last. I kind of mixed up the first and wasn't the third, but it doesn't matter. Fact of the matter is that all of those biomes are not places of the past necessarily, rather that they're currently in our world, in our current timeline. They're just chilling underneath Valencia Desert, right into kind of underneath, or like right of Ulukita. And you see, and that's actually a factual place. It's not just a place where the devs put it for no reason. It actually exists there. And a very important thing to say is that all of the architects, children of war, have been sent during, basically, this is happening 8,000 years ago. Remember, that's a long time ago, something like 8,000 years ago. All of those architects are being sent into different places to kind of absorb the knowledge of those very important places, such as, Valmakea is essentially Valmakea of old. We have Sekrekea of old. We have Yolunakia of old, and Orzekea of old. And they go into those, and bear in mind that they're named after those, kind of, in a way. So Vacha goes into Valmakea, Sekre goes into Sekrakia, we have Yolu goes into Yolunakia, and Orz goes into Orzekea. In all of those places, they absorb knowledge and they start doing things and they start understanding, learning, and they all share records of their experiences, and they get to kind of then go back into those places and just be like a knowledge exchange. Then they go back into the biomes and they start becoming the architects known as the Decumas. The individuals have all different types of tasks. Some build weapons, other, kind of engineering, the other builds kind of key locks, etc. It's a different thing. But this is like kind of what it became. This is what it was supposed to be. Fact of the matter is that as they grew, love starts shining between them. There's always a third wheel. There are four of them. Sika is just out of the picture immediately for everybody. They pity him. Yolo is like the leader of it. Vacha falls in love with Yolo, or as far as in love with Vacha, and Vacha then, it's a little bit of a Korean teen drama, but it serves a lot of purpose. It's not just stupid, silly love for the sakes of it, right? So fact of the matter is, this is the idea of Atoraxxion. But unfortunately, as they grow up, their characteristics kind of shift. Some grow envious, others grow spiteful, little by little, and this is within the Atoraxxion records, something that became with nothing but good intent, and that is to be a bastion against the dark spirits, the black spirits which are coming through, now becomes a thing which is just perverse. Some talk about torture, others start worshipping pretty much gods. They just deteriorate into something that they weren't. So Atoraxxion, from a bastion where you're supposed to be defending against the dark spirit, turns into what sadly is looking to be in the future a concentration camp. In Yolunakia, pretty much, we get at the ending that the Decumas, they shatter a Telibra's door, and Vacha actually does this, and they lock themselves inside with no means to escape, which is a very bad thing. And as they are locked inside, they stood together, and they decide that eventually they're going to perish, and they're going to perish very bad. And Yolu in particular is very distinct with her description. She herself states that, they were looking for ways to take their own lives, and they were looking to do it as painless as possible. And they find this Kaivization thing from Sage. They attempt it in their own, and all four of them go through this process to enter a forever sleep. Fact of the matter is that Vacha's obsession was a very big twist, because it turns out that the Kaivization on its own is a process of transferring the consciousness into their ultimate weapons, which is the last bosses of those particular dungeons. Yes, you hear me correct. This means that when we went for Vacha, we kind of killed Vacha's consciousness inside the last boss of Atoraxxion, Valmakea. Then in Sekrakia, the same thing. In Yolunakia, the same thing. And this is kind of like the dark twist of Atoraxxion. But one person was not succumbing to this fate, and that is Orz. Orz, the one that would break this cycle. And now we gotta talk about Orzekea. Orz has been, ever since a child, in communication with a deity which she says as the Dark Goddess. That's a very important thing. It's a very important thing because Ors is her real name is Lucretia, by the way. Her real name is Lucretia, and she calls herself Lucy in her own mind, kind of like she keeps a separate identity from what Sage has given, and she is quite rebellious because of her goddess and her worship towards the dark goddess, who she is in communication with, and all of this leads towards essentially a denial of Sage's teaching. She follows the plan of the dark goddess instead of this. Now, something very important here to say, and why is Ors just lore breaking pretty much? Ors is a Ganel, an elf, which has been something insane to us. When the first time we heard it, it was like everybody in the lore community was like, hold on a minute, really? And that is because we never knew whether or not elves existed in this world during the Orzekean and Yolonakian days. Now, that is of vast importance because the main theory in the world right now of BDO's lore is that Sylvia is the Thornwood goddess or the dark goddess, and we're going to get into that in a bit. But fact of the matter is that story never made any sense because we never knew if the elves were here when the Thornwood goddess was a thing. And now we know the elves were here. So immediately the connection, like the line, is just made instantaneously for both of them. And it's never been more true than now. But the big twist to Orzekea goes not into the fact that the mysterious girl that we found for whatever reason in Orzekea turns out to be Ors. No, that's not even the thing. That's the funny thing. For the people that is just fresh right now in BDO, you might think that fact of the matter is a thing. No, that's not even 1% of a smithereen of what the plot twist is. A very important thing. The moment we enter this dungeon, we go in with Yaz, and Yaz, for whatever reason, can control the soul magia in a way how in Yolonakia, the ending of Yolonakia, we get to see how Sage has a 99.7% match with the genes needed to operate this. And our little Yaz turns out to be, for whatever reason, in accordance with the soul magia, and she is capable of being used as power source to operate. Now that's a very big thing, and we didn't really know what to make of it up until we got to the end. And of course, a little bit of a backstory about Yaz. She's been found, I think, in Bree Tree Ruins or something like this by a Floran chief, whatever his name was called. I forgot about his name. But anyways, and you know, that's a topic which nobody really likes to talk about for whatever reason. Then we proceed into the story, and we finally meet Ors, and we finally meet the rest of the gang, and they're with us, and there's a little bit of a plot twist. Turns out that one of the Acker during Catherine's slaying in Camasylvia has been used as a psyche for the Cathawen, which is essentially quote-unquote the last construct, or like the ultimate weapon of Ors. So we get to understand that, right, Ors is not in that biome. In the sense of, in the Kaivization, in the sense of Ors is not inside of it. And Orwen, who is, you know, that's been kind of teased almost since the first quest of the entire chain, Orwen, who is Kafris's daughter, being recognized as such. You know, that's a very important bit. Fact of the matter goes into the future that it's not Ors inside, so Ors must be somewhere. And we begin to learn about this Kaivization and what it becomes. And the fact of the matter is that it transfers consciousness into the final weapons, into the psyche of this. And the dark twist of Atoraxxion kind of really becomes solidified. And that's just a horror thing to go through. Fact of the matter is that we killed them, and we believe, at least for now, there is no evidence of it, that those consciousness goes back. It's kind of like you kill it and the consciousness just goes out with them. And we understand that Ors, upon facing Cathawen, we understand that Ors is, fact of the matter, still alive, and she's still there, and she is breathing. And that's a very big thing, because that's an 8,000 years old person, right? So we get to understand throughout this entire of Orzekea, this entire thing, that Ors in particular has had a deal with Elezra. And that is to find a psyche for her Cathawen, which is like the construct for a psyche that wouldn't fail, because Ors actually has already performed attempts to put, you know, consciousness into Cathawen, but she never could. It just ended up in horrific experiments. So we go inside this entire culmination with finally meeting Elezra. And we see that, they had a deal with one another. The deal was for Catherine Psyche to go through and for her to assist with bringing Mother's plan, whatever Mother is. And in the end, of course, Elezra, in a typical fashion, she betrays Ors and goes to steal the heart of Adamantia, which turns out to be the real heart and not the one which we got in Sika. So fact of the matter is that another plot twist goes through inside, well, the first one, Lucia is actually Ors. Second one, Adamantia heart within Elezra, that sucks. That's very bad, by the way. And the third one is the big one. So we conclude by, unfortunately, defeating Ors. And I say unfortunately because I didn't want to defeat her. But fact of the matter is, she doesn't seem to be gone. Ors crumbles back into the tree, and like the Thornwood goddess herself, she binds herself into it back from where she emerged, and she goes there literally looking like the Thornwood goddess. And when I saw this the first time in my playthrough, which is available for you guys to see, it's actually on the channel uploaded. Just go ahead, it's like 3 hours. Go grind, listen to me about lore and stuff like that. The first thing that I went through was like, she has to be the Thornwood goddess herself, but then who is the Dark Goddess? And here is the real plot twist of Orzekea, and here's what it really is, and why it's so epic, and why it's so amazing. Well, we have found evidence, not like none other, because, Ors speaks specifically about something during that particular quest chain, and she speaks about planting the first Kaheliac. The first Kaheliac is like, to say that you have planted a Kaheliac is to essentially admit worship to Hadum. Now, Hadum 8,000 years ago is not really, it's like we don't know exactly what time, but think about it like this. You are speaking with the Dark Goddess as a Ganel. Now, you're an elf. To have the Dark Goddess in your mind would be the same way as Archer heard, quote-unquote, Sylvia's voice. It would be the same as Caphras himself, who heard the pronunciation of the new Lord of Elvia. He says this in his journal, which might be tempered with, we do not know. But Caphras says, I heard a female voice saying, Hadum Vuhura Kaheliac. Now that's a very important thing, because to plant a Kaheliac means to plant a seed of Hadum. To plant a seed of Hadum means some very bad stuff. So you kind of get, for the first time ever, and here's why this is so dangerous and so scary to me for the lore and where it's supposed to move, because remember when I told you that Sylvia is a Thornwood goddess? Forget about it. She isn't. Like, the moment you say this, and she says herself in her record, she says, with the power of Bree, who is, I forgot to mention Bree, and I apologize for this, during one of her waking up, because the Kaivization didn't really work for her. She went to wake up and go back to sleep, wake up and go back to sleep. At one point, she found the child in Yolu's body, and she decided, we do not know how, it's not being mentioned to us, she decided to somehow get that child and to raise it, and that's the child of Bree. Now, who was found in Bree ancient ruins? Well, Yaz was found, and this is why we believe that Yaz was capable of operating the Soul Magia, because Ors had some dealings with Bree, and they say that on one of their waking ups, they went into the world to plant the Kaheliacs, and they say that the first tree where the Dark Goddess was bound, they used that tree with Bree's power to make a Kaheliac. Now, let me tell you what that is. That's a Kuduran. That's a Kuduran. It is said that the Thornwood Goddess created a Kuduran. Now, the main theory, mainly by Korn into the lore community, and he's talking about how Bree is, the fact of the matter, probably the Thornwood Goddess. And the fact is that people were confused in the Orzekian days. We just don't know exactly how, but this is like another mystery. But we know for a fact that the Dark Goddess she was put there into the Thornwood. So that's no longer a Thornwood goddess, or is it? This is one of the things about Orzekea. It's like everything that we thought, it was supposed to essentially give us an answer that Sylvia is a Thornwood goddess, right now has never hinted more towards Sylvia being Hadum. And that's the real plot twist of Orzekea. Do you know why it's so? It is so because we have heard by none other. The only people that have heard Sylvia's voice hear it in female, hear it loud, hear it angry, and you could say that it's Hadou manipulation, but 8,000 years ago? That's crazy. And as I say, just the real twist towards Orzekea is the fact that we have pretty much evidence that Hadou is Sylvia. And if that is true, War of the Roses currently is being fought against Sylvia's will. This means that Khafrus did in fact hear Sylvia saying, well, Sylvia, the Dark Goddess, which is believed to be in Elvish. Some people believe this, that Hadum Vuhura Kaheliak means Sylvia, Goddess of Darkness, or like Dark Goddess, whatever. This is like crazy. This is crazy because it kind of goes near full circle, and the last bit of elven lore is going to be within the demon lands of Alieli, or Idania, for whatever reason they decided to call it like this, where we will meet Khafrus, and we will get to Orwyn, and we will probably get a full circle on whether or not Hadum is now Sylvia. So, the Thornwood Goddess is kind of just... it's kind of not necessarily out of the picture, but that's not the focus for anymore. Right now, it's Hadum could be Sylvia, and that would make a lot of sense. This is the real plot twist of Orzekea, and we've been sitting on it for quite some time. People have been talking about it, and yeah, that's insane. That's insane. The hints that Sylvia can be Hadum has never been harder, has never been bigger, has never been more louder. And if that is so, I didn't even use any of my notes, I remembered it. And if that is so, then we're moving towards pretty much an apocalypse of BDO. And I say an apocalypse because if Hadum is Sylvia, this means that, wow, the implications are insane. If I go into Hadum is Sylvia, that's another 30 minutes. So hope you enjoyed this video, guys, and wow, Orzekea is just insane.